point of business, I'm reasonably certain. Let me turn my sound off here. Yes, it's not good at all. Reasonably certain the chair won't call me out of order, though. We are going to be bereft shortly through the loss of one of our members. And I know it'll be a new adventure for him and exciting and all that, but for the rest of us, this is going to be awful. I mean, there'll be ashes and sackcloth for months and months and months. And sure, he's leaving behind a good team and we'll continue on somehow, but it's not going to be the same. It's just not going to be the same. And thinking about that, and with the able assistance and input from a number of folks, most recently our esteemed attorney, I came up with a resolution that I'd like to propose to the authority for our consideration and due deliberation. So a resolution to recognize the contributions of Michael J. Culp. Whereas Michael J. Culp served as an original member of the Albemarle Broadband Authority Board of Directors from 2017 until 2019. Whereas Michael J. Culp became the chief administrator for ABBA in 2019 and has served honorably, diligently, and continuously since his appointment. Whereas Michael J. Culp currently serves as the director of the Broadband Accessibility and Affordability Office for Albemarle County, Virginia, since that's office inception, and sits on Governor Glenn Youngkin's Broadband Advisory Council. Whereas prior to him directing the Broadband Accessibility and Affordability Office, Michael J. Culp served for 18 years as the IT director for Albemarle County, during which time he came to focus on achieving universal access to broadband communication technologies for the entire Albemarle County community. Whereas Michael J. Culp is a longtime resident of Albemarle County's rural areas, which has given him a firsthand appreciation of the need for access to broadband throughout Albemarle County. Whereas for his expert and critical service to this authority and the Albemarle community at large, Michael J. Culp is deserving of commendation, recognition, and gratitude. Now, therefore, be it resolved on this 10th day of December, 2024, that the Albemarle Broadband Authority hereby proclaims the following. The Albemarle Broadband Authority, in recognition of the outstanding commitment he has made for the last decade to bring high-speed internet broadband services to all the citizens of Albemarle County, Virginia, hereby proclaims and designates Mike Culp as the man who brought broadband to Albemarle. In gratitude for his dedication, leadership, and vision, this proclamation is made on this 10th day of December, 2024. In witness whereof, we, the members of the Albemarle Broadband Authority, have caused our following names to be inscribed upon a plaque honoring Mike Culp accordingly. I move the board to adopt this resolution recognizing Mike Culp for his significant service to the authority and to the county of Albemarle, Virginia, and authorize the procurement and presentation of a plaque to Mike Culp proclaiming the same. Is there a second?
No.
Any discussion? In lieu of our normal voting procedure, I would ask that all those in favor please rise and applaud. I had the feeling that the authority might this is an acceptable motion.
Lucky we did.
I took the liberty of having a plaque made.
Wow.
And it is small enough recompense to the
Oh,
man
that
who
is
brought
really
broadband
nice.
to Albemarle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, unexpected. Really appreciate this, y'all. It's been a crazy 4 or 5 years. You know, I guess when I was in IT, it was very important for me to reach out to people who didn't have access to technology, and we're still working in that regard. I mean, here at the county, when I first started, there were people who were still using dumb terminals. So that takes you back a long time. And knowing that modern computing is available to almost everyone now, except for our most unfortunate, as well as the people who live in rural areas, I felt this was a life calling to help get things going. And there's been a lot of people who've helped make that happen. So it's not been a one-man job. I might be, considered someone bringing broadband to anywhere. but my own house still doesn't have it, so.
Never putting himself in front of others.
For leadership.
So, I really appreciate working with y'all. It's been a great joy. Trevor, especially working with him in the IT world that was a tough time we went through, and we made it through, and it was good to get to the other side. This guy here, man, I mean, Bill, I don't know how to explain how many times one word answers. That's all that's needed a lot of times. And Waldo, I mean, I've always admired you. And then when you join the authority, it's great to know that you're with us and doing this type of work, and you stuck with it despite all the things you're doing, which are admirable in itself. And of course, Jim, obviously, coming on as a board of supervisor member in a tough district, and yeah, for broadband at least. And thank you, Liz, for being here. You didn't have to. Yeah, I love the meetings when your little pooch came over and made it a lot more fun. And then these two, you guys have been there the times that I needed you, Richie and Bucky especially, both of you guys, man. Anytime I was like down or whatever, you helped out a lot. And then Jason, man, saving the day when we had CenturyLink. There's no way I could have made it through that without his help. I mean, having to go to the state and all that, it was overwhelming those months. I really appreciate that. So, yeah, and you're going to do a great job with the rest of what's going on. And then, TJ PDC and Laurie, of course. Laurie and I were in Leadership Charlottesville together. So always been a big help, and now working with TJ PDC, it's definitely, and of course, my Firefly friend there, Dennis and I have done a lot of different work together, and that was probably bringing you guys on, Gary Wood and all. Those are the people who brought broadband to Central Virginia and Albemarle County. I just, my only regret there is I didn't push more to get you guys moving faster, because we brought in some other non-competitors in my view, but incumbents that had we been a little more patient, I shouldn't go into regrets that much. Had we been more patient, we would have had you guys.
It's a night to celebrate.
Doing a lot more, exactly. So anyway, it's great to be working in the county. I'll miss working here a lot. And I appreciate everybody coming out and giving me these accolades. This is a great plaque. I really appreciate it. All right.
Oh, you're not done.
Mike, before you sit down, Chair, I may, under the current agenda. So it's customary in the military world of hail and farewells to issue a challenge coin. That's also common in public safety. No push-ups today. No, I appreciate that, though. You have a retina. We don't want to, the county executive office a few years ago has adopted this, and it's, although small, but meaningful. Mike, you and I've worked together in different roles and different capacities, since I've been at the county around 2009, 2010. I don't know if there's someone that does more from the heart for customer service in any setting that I've ever encountered. And so thank you, Chair, for taking the leadership on putting the proclamation and the plaque together. I think the legacy, and something that I've been saying to you since 2018, is that you're the subject matter expert for broadband in the state of Virginia, and that you could have written your ticket anywhere. And I'm thankful as a resident that you chose to stay and continue to do this. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to say under your leadership, broadband will be available. There may be a pothole here or there, but let's not worry about that. Right. And I think
those rocks are deep and hard.
Yeah,
right?
under your leadership and guidance, we got there, and it wouldn't have been without your direct, pushing that rock. So on behalf of the county, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Always great to get something from a sub-commander.
That's right.
All right. Thank you all again. I really appreciate it.
I would like to say something really quickly.
The chair recognizes. It's small.
I was just thinking about this on the way over, well, actually, when, after I was invited, and it was 2013 when I first came to a meeting, I think it was in this room. You were very quiet, and there were a whole bunch of people in here from industry, all saying why this could never happen. And it was just so depressing. And then when I got on the board in 2014 and we started trying to figure out how we were going to do this with your leadership and all the people working on it and trying to get the board to support it and throw money at it
Right.
and all that sort of thing. And in the beginning, when people started, a lot of people were not nice, and I thought in the beginning, Mike Culp is way too nice for this position. He's not going to be able to take care of all of these people yelling and screaming, but you did a beautiful job of that. And I just want to say that, as a board member for 8 years, listening to people complaining about not having broadband and you going out and explaining things to them incredibly patiently and kindly and whatnot, it was just really a wonderful thing to see. And I'll stop there.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Liz. Appreciate that.
Is there anyone else who'd like a chance to speak on Mike's behalf? Okay,
Mr. Chair, I do have a public comment to be added to the record from former member Donna Price.
oh. Okay, can I say these words in a Zoom call?
I believe you can. We are not FCC regulated as we know.
Okay. Jason, I regret that I no longer have Bucky's email address, so please share this with him. Done. Thank you for your email. If it were possible to attend, either in person or via remote connection, I would be there. While happy that I will be taking care of my grandchild in Wilmington, North Carolina during the time of the ABBA meeting, I regret that my being so committed will, of necessity, preclude my ability to participate personally and provide my direct laudatory comments regarding my extremely positive interactions and working relationship with Mike during my 4 years on the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors as a member of the Albemarle Broadband Authority and as a county community member, because I have been the beneficiary of Mr. Culp's responsiveness, courtesy, professionalism, and can-do attitude in every single thing he does in each of those separate and distinct situations. The comments that follow, therefore, relate to all three situations where I have interacted with Mr. Culp, community member, ABBA member, and Board of Supervisors member. It goes on for about 8 more pages.
Yeah,
As a community member, when I first met Mr. Culp, I was one of the many county residents who was experiencing numerous times of frustration and lack of connectedness from the legacy internet connectivity sometimes provided through the old and decaying copper wire systems. On each and every occasion, Mr. Culp and the county's broadband office promptly took action to escalate the problem through the bureaucracy of the provider, resulting in actual repair service and delivery of connectedness. When the copper system simply became so unreliable that alternative sources became necessary, Mr. Culp assisted in my learning which options were available and helped direct me to the right people in those providers to connection. Because of his service to me as a simple community member, I've gone from occasionally having to conduct business in my truck using my smartphone hotspot to now having very reliable broadband connections at my home. As a member of ABBA, the work Mr. Culp did in facilitating the authority's successes are beyond measure. By regularly and routinely having the various providers in the county appear and respond to the authority, he ensured that they were in turn responsive. If there is one single person to whom I would give the greatest measure of responsibility and accolades for the great successes of the authority, it would easily be Mr. Culp. I'm sure she meant Mr. Walsh.
I think.
Through his actions, both the authority and the community were aware of the schedule and progress achieved in bringing broadband connectivity to 20,000 more people than when the authority began, and will in the near future provide the access to essentially every property in the county. As a member of the Board of Supervisors, in both his service to ABBA and as a critical and key member of the county staff, My experiences with Mr. Culp were of a dedicated public servant, always ready, willing, and able to leave no stone unturned in finding the best solution to whatever problem the county or community was experiencing. His foresight saw where action needed to be taken. His vision for bringing connectivity throughout the county has been exceptional, and his desire to always be responsive and responsible are the hallmarks of his incredible character for service above self. It has been my great pleasure and honor to serve with Mr. Culp. With his mission accomplished, he can retire with confidence that he has stood the watch while also preparing the county for his departure. Nothing more could be asked than that. Best wishes, Donna Price.
Great. That's nice.
Is there anything else?
Oh, I got Firefly fiber laid on my street finally last week,
Congratulations.
two weeks ago.
Up the hill.
Thank you.
Up the hill. That's right.
One day may that be true for all of us.
You can't retire until it's a tree.
Yeah, you got a long driveway. Me too. We'll get there. Right.
We haven't, I'm sure, come close to doing justice, but at the moment I'm talked out. So perhaps we should move on.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Mike.
Been great.
If there are no more announcements from authority members, then we have an opportunity for public comment. Anyone from the public like to speak? Looking at the online list.
All I can say is my husband has worked tirelessly and he's just been the most dedicated to the cause that I've seen.
Here, here.
Thanks, Debbie.
You
Yeah, I forgot to thank y'all, man. Thank you, Debbie, for helping make me be true to the word that I gave you to help the county as much as I could, as long as I could. So, yeah, no doubt. Yep.
If there's anyone online who'd like to speak, just hit the, use the raise hand function. We'll give you a moment to hunt for that. It's somewhere on the screen. All right, not seeing anything.
They don't know what to say.
Well, you know, how could you add to this? It's just. Yes, sir.
Yes, Dennis Reese. So I've been working with Mike since I came to Firefly in 2020, early 2020, and I've been doing this for, I guess, 28 years now, and working with a lot of counties, like a lot of localities over the years. But from someone from the county government, Mike has been the most engaged I've ever seen of anyone I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And I want Mike to know that, and all your work and dedication and your partnership with us has been much appreciated. And we wish you the best.
Yes.
All right, let's move on. The consent agenda. Talk about bereft. Dear Ava, please accept my resignation. So in addition to the usual budgetary item, we also have the Chief Administrator Officer resignation. This, of course, means we no longer need to fund his pension, right? Okay, so there's an upside.
I'm
All those-
returning the Nava vehicle too. I mean, it's.
Which one?
Yeah, I was gonna say the bugger plane.
The helicopter. No. No. Anyway, I appreciate the time of the Broadband Authority to consider Mr. Inafuentes as a replacement. The Chief Administrative Officer is an important role for the Broadband Authority, so I think, that may be taken up under new business possibly, but just wanted to once again thank everybody for indulging me as the CAO of the Broadband Authority. It's been a pleasure.
Any objections to the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll take that as approved. We have meeting minutes, lots and lots of meeting minutes. Bill, did you get any substantive feedback on the minutes?
No, but some changes, but they were all grammatical.
Minor things, very good. Can we move these en banc or should we take them one at a time?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I move to approve all of the meeting minutes Bill has sent to us this time around.
second.
Any objections? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Then we're approved. All the meeting minutes are approved. Yay, finishing the year on a really good note.
All caught up until this meeting's over.
It's just been the best meeting ever. All right, old business. Body 2021. Jason?
Mr. Chair, the initial closeout for Body 21 was submitted on December 3rd. Officially, this project is over. However,
That's submitted to us or
to DHCD.
by us?
By us.
Okay, thank you.
There are additional closeout reports due at the 6-month and 12-month mark. The Brightspeed did provide us all of the necessary material. It was sufficient, and we currently are awaiting acceptance of those reports of the report by DHCD. We did receive, we mentioned previously, an invoice from Brightspeed for this project. In order to be reimbursed by DHCD, we first needed their budget to align with the budget documents, and so we submitted a budget revision, and we are awaiting approval on that. In the interim, we are working administratively to pay ABBA's portion of the grant, which was $560,000. Once we have budget revision approved, we will submit for reimbursement to DHCD for their portion minus the 10% retainage, and then we will await until the final closeout report to submit for the final 10%. Any questions on those?
Sounds like good news.
Yeah.
All good news. One of the items to note, throughout all of this, we've been waiting for everybody to have an agreement on the locations. And as part of the closeout, we did receive from them an official list of the locations that they served through this project. So it was much appreciated. And I don't have it on this slide, and I apologize for that. The take rate. The take rate needed to be above 50%. It was 64. Moving to Body 22. Construction work, as always, continues. Firefly continues to work through easement issues as they come up. And Dominion continues its work and remains on schedule. We continue to recommend that anybody that believes that they are going to be party to this project should go ahead and go to fireflyva.com/partners-Albemarle, and they can actually look at maps of each project area to There were some updates to progress, including completion of additional miles of make-ready construction. And since the last time we were able to update the authority, the number of passings has also increased. Any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, one more. Dominion's work continues apace, and they are at 60% completion in the county. Which is, I'm sorry, of the actual stringing. Splicing is at 20%.
Still see trucks all the time.
Yeah. Everywhere you go, there's a bundle of fiber hanging from a pole somewhere. Yeah.
I have a question, just something that's been puzzling me. What I see on the poles after they've been modified are these big discs of like spare cable. What is that?
I believe that is the splicing component. So from there, they will drop straight down to whatever facility is going to be near. So where you see those rings, Dennis can clarify if that's needed. where you see those rings, that is where the facility is gonna be to then distribute. Now, that might just be a handhole and then it goes to a pond, or it might drop right there to a pond, depending on the situation.
So that's just there temporarily until that can actually be run.
But the other thing that I've seen is that the loop hangs there until the next day and then the crew keeps going.
Okay. Okay.
So they do have these racks where they do access fiber. So part of that is they typically do drop down to do a splice point there, whether that hands off for us or not. But part of that is they have the excess fiber there for if there's ever fiber damage, they can pull that back through without having to replace it all.
Yeah.
So part of that's that, sometimes you'll see what they call the snowshoe that other people use.
Yeah.
For having some excess fiber there for dropping it down off the pole. So you can actually splice it from the ground and not having to do it in the air. So part of that's that too.
Okay.
But those will remain.
Okay. They're permanent fixtures.
They're a permanent fixture.
Okay.
Doors are owned by the.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I know it's not really relevant to our work, but it's a chance to learn a cool thing about infrastructure and I wanted to ask. So thank you.
We encourage it. Any other questions on just body 22 progress?
No, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, we do have an update on the Yancey Community Center. And it's a curious one because we're presupposing that tomorrow in the consent agenda, the board will approve our notification of hearing. And so the public hearing is scheduled for January the 15th. In the back of your packet is the draft resolution that we will be submitting with the executive summary for that. If there are any changes, we will update you all. But that is what we're expecting to move forward with. There have been no changes. Following the last meeting's reporting on this, Bill mentioned site review and planning. That is something that will need to happen in whatever manner is necessary for this site. So we will make sure to keep everybody that needs to be involved in the loop to advance this as necessary.
And I've looked at it, just so everyone knows, don't see any issues that are going to delay its
They're not
construction.
gonna have to reopen the old nuclear reactor or anything like
I
that.
don't think so, no, it looks very straightforward. I was a little concerned about, because of fuel storage setbacks and stuff, but it's all good.
Completely preliminary, but
Yeah,
Good news.
at first glance, there's nothing, nothing.
no red flags.
Right, yes.
And that brings us to the DAAO report. We're going to cover 4 things. One of them is very fresh, and that's the JLARC review. So we'll try to be as brief as we can. The application window for BEAD in Virginia has opened. The HCD completed its letters of intent process on November 30th and opened applications on the 1st of December. One revision to this, I looked at the numbers again. There's 327 locations. I should have updated that this afternoon. Applications are due by March 31st. And we'll talk about what the importance of our estimate versus DHCD's estimate in just a moment. But the other thing to cover is that we received, according to DHCD's submittal, between 16 and 18 letters of intent
From ISPs.
from providers that
We were shocked. Everybody across the Commonwealth is pretty shocked at the number of interested. But the way DHCD sets it up is you can send a letter in and then still not apply. It doesn't
Yeah.
force the application. So of
Yeah,
course we're gonna
there's
get.
no commitment.
Yeah.
Reviewing the letters that are publicly available, there were several providers that were familiar to us. Brightspeed, Comcast, FiberLink, Firefly, Lumos, and Nelson Cable are all obviously fiber providers in our area. SpaceX, not a surprise, they submitted something for an unknown territory. However, we feel confident that they were among the ones that applied for our area. And then US Cellular, which again is a fairly familiar regional fiber provider, regional wireless provider that provides a fixed wireless solution. Unfamiliar to us was All Points Broadband, very familiar to the state, Port 80 Internet, Zytel, IBT Group, and Verizon. Verizon does have a small DSL territory in Albemarle County. I believe it's in furthest north. But they did include us in their letter. And then at the time, unknown was Appalachian Broadband Innovators, which did get back to me today and said that they indicated that we were included. They are a SpaceX reseller. River Street, which does a lot of work elsewhere, but it's possible that they included us. We have reached out to them and have not heard back. And then Amazon Kuiper, which is their low Earth orbit satellite system, their letter seems to indicate a broad effort, similar to SpaceX. We don't have a contact to reach out to. So if anybody does, feel free to let us know.
But they haven't launched any satellites yet.
I will.
Maybe in New Jersey, they're just flying.
I will point out the BEAD update that DHCD provided us did for the first time make reference to the fact that these projects might not end until 2031.
Right.
Because there's a 4-year window from when everybody's under contract, and if you bake in a certain number of delays, 2031 is a realistic timeline. So those are the people that we believe have submitted a letter of intent. If you include Appalachian Broadband investors, I believe that gets us to 16. So it's possible that we are not on River Street or Amazon's list. But we will continue to work to find out, and then we will obviously see who submits applications. Speaking of applications and letters, BEAD per DHCD is our input comes through letters of support. Providers are the applicants. Localities can issue letters of support. Our office proposes that ABBA issue letters of support on behalf of the county. And there will be another motion before the Board of Supervisors on January the 15th to that effect. The draft resolution is also in the back of your packet for that one. And I think there's 2 reasons why we make this proposal. The first is expeditiousness. It is easier to put something before this body and quicker. The other reason is, as we've already discussed, expertise. This body has been very deeply involved in all of these projects. It's much more familiar than several of the other board members. And so I think that it makes sense for ABBA on behalf of the county to issue these letters. The other proposals that we make that the office receive and evaluate requests for letters of support and makes recommendations to ABBA for approval. And our recommendation criteria fix on these 2 factors. One is completion by the end of 2026. We are at 327 locations. I've gone through that data sideways, backwards, with my eyes closed. It's a firm number that 327 of these locations are actually BEAD eligible. So that means that they are not currently being served and that they are not currently in a project. So when you look at DHCD's figures of more than 1,400, in that there are several hundred Firefly locations. There are several hundred Comcast locations. There are several Brightstar locations, King locations. There are several locations that are actually part of the national parks, part of UVA. There are some that are not, there are several that are just not actual locations. They are abandoned barns, they are empty fields. So we feel very, very confident that there are only 328. What I worry about when I think about the spending of this BEAD funding is that if we presuppose that everybody's going to expect these applications to be more expensive, and a provider gets awarded 1,400 locations at $5,000 a pop, which is double what the body program successfully worked on for years. That's going to be a huge expenditure of funds, of limited funds. And to be blunt, that means that there will be less funding for non-deployment programs that themselves could have a huge impact. And it's going to be funding that is spent unnecessarily because only 327 of those 1,400 locations are actually eligible for the program. So Those are our recommendations. I don't know that there's a need for a motion, but I will leave that to the chair.
Yeah, I would like to take that up with the authority. What is our stance? Is this a responsibility we want to have?
What is the impact of a letter of support?
10% of the scoring. We can issue multiple letters of support. So one scenario is that multiple providers apply for the same areas, and they don't need to apply for all of the areas. The projects are broken up into the zip code tabulation areas, and then providers are expected to apply for all of the eligible locations within each ZCTA. But we could have a scenario where multiple providers apply for the same areas. One meets our recommendations, one does not. We could also have scenarios where each of them meet the recommendations, are applying for the same areas, and we could issue letters of support to each. There's no mutual exclusivity in it.
Or none, if none of them met
Right.
our expectations.
And it's 10% of the scoring that they get for.
Yep.
You say it's divided up by zip code?
Zip code tabulation area within a locality. So where, I knew you were gonna go there. So where zip codes overlap localities, there's just a dividing line. So the
It's a
zip code.
terrible idea.
I'm not working for the federal government.
I see. As the Fed, maybe I.
Yeah, I was
like
gonna
that.
say.
Wow, okay.
Um,
Okay. Nobody should ever use zip codes for that, but they've done it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's better than census blocks.
All right. Oh, okay. Okay, so but the question here then is, you're asking is, do we want to be?
We want to be considered for this responsibility.
If not, what the alternative is, there is no input in the process from the locality perspective.
Yeah, there's no.
No,
additional-
the county could provide the.
Or the board has.
The
to-
board can
or the board
delegate
can
it
do
to
it,
the
and-
county
and-
executives or to,
Right.
yeah. But the grant is, as Jason explained to me, the letter comes from the governing body. So it's not just from the county executive's office. It has to somehow, but they accept delegations.
So there isn't any downside to doing a delegation as opposed to having the board.
I defer to
There's no
Jason.
downside relative to DHCD's process. They will accept a letter from ABBA on behalf of the Board of Supervisors.
I move two minds, and let me just say what the two are, and maybe it can help us figure it out. On the one hand, it does feel like, as a board, like we would want to have input into that, and particularly helping to determine who we'd want to back and so on. But also, longer term, like we want ABBA not to exist. Like, we want to get to the point where it's not needed. And I worry that us failing to delegate over to county staff over just 327 locations may be the wrong direction of control that we should be going in as a board.
I think you summed up my thoughts perfectly.
If I may, so since I've been on this board, it has not been as active as I know it was shortly before I joined, but.
Not your fault.
Well, I came here and I said, stop the work.
Many mics, yeah.
But what I hear is potentially a process by which this board would individually have brought to it for consideration up to 327 discrete, probably not, because they'd be.
16.
Provider.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about, is the providers, not all the locations.
Yeah.
In either way, whether it's 327 or just 16. Do we realistically see ourselves having as a body that much to say about the differences between these, frankly?
Based on our history, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
There's a few of these folks
Yeah.
that we would have strong opinions one way and few strong opinions another way, and others just based on the merit of their approval, of their approach. We might have opinions.
Yeah, like All Points Broadband should probably finish the work that's in front of them right now, or maybe like start it before they go bidding on things in other parts of the state.
That's a nice example.
And we can touch on, the JLARC study actually includes a lot of recommendations sort of along the lines of how should the state be considering deed. That might be, you know, a little bit late to be making those recommendations since their process has already begun. But there's certainly room for us to adopt those recommendations. And one of those recommendations is actually considering historical performance. That isn't a factor in the scoring. Sorry,
That's on the base. That's not a factor in the score.
that is not a factor
Right
in the
now,
scoring.
it's
Um,
Other
Another,
than as it might be reflected in the recommendation.
right, another factor that was recommended by JLARC is performance standards for these contracts with mechanisms for penalizing ISPs that do not perform. So those are certainly things that ABBA has the capability to actually incorporate into its decision-making, that the Board of Supervisors could also, and their delegate, whoever they delegate could also, is, to my knowledge, unless there's a lot of change expected to happen in the BEAD process, and I don't expect that, there is limited ability for DHCD at this stage to take up JLARC's recommendations. So this is actually an opportunity to take the recommended course of action that JLARC is making.
It is not generally my desire to find more things for ABBA to do, but there are 327 citizens that still need our help. We have locations that still need our help. I would propose that pursuant to the action of the Board of Supervisors, that if offered this responsibility, we accept it and carry it out. That's my motion.
Second, comment?
Yes, please.
So, see, recommend the letters of support, would they all come in? It says completion by the end of 2026.
Yeah.
Would they come in all at once or bunched, or are we talking about things that are just gonna be happening slowly over 2 years?
Having applied for grants in the past, it is most likely that everybody will be applying at the very last minute. There's
Yeah, the
also,
application window. When is the application?
it closes March 30th if NTIA approves the DHCD challenge process by January 1st. If there is any delay beyond that in approving the challenge process, then the March 30th window will float on. So we don't know who is actually going to apply of the 16. But I would expect that some providers will be ready to apply early and some might send, requests very late. One of our desires in bringing this before the authority now in December is to be able to advertise to all 16. Since we know roughly who they are, being able to just let all of them know, hey, over the next several months, here is the meeting schedule for ABBA. This is when, you can expect to hear back from us if you submit a request for a letter of support in a given timeframe. If ABBA does not move to do this, then we will follow up with a much longer timeline to do the same through the Board of Supervisors, or if there's another delegate, then we will work to spread the word on that process.
It sounds like a very plausible scenario is that ABBA has a new business section on the first meeting of May that is 14, say, ISP requests that have to be considered basically that meeting.
Again, part of the proposal is that the AAO allow their chief administrative officer to evaluate and make recommendation. We would not bring you guys 14 things to evaluate. We would through staff diligence, look them over, make recommendations based on criteria that you all establish, and then have those to you well in advance of any meeting where we would ask for any action.
I'd be happy to have you make recommendations and review things, but I think as part of our diligence, we should at least see every request.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds good.
So we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I would just add that I've been pretty sold that it warrants legislative discernment, and I think this is the body that makes the most sense for that, just based on everyone's reaction when I asked that question.
Fair enough. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So if offered, we will accept, and we can march forward.
Excellent. this should have more details on it. Just a review, BEAD deployment funding, we are now all the way in the second to last box, where we are expecting in this application window that we will receive requests for letters of support. The DEA state capacity grant, we are still in the awaiting NTIA plan approval, and the BEAD non-deployment funding, we are awaiting commitment of all deployment funds, which may not occur until mid-2026. No, they're the whole dots.
The big non-deployment funding is really things that will fall more naturally under the BAAO.
Correct.
Yeah.
As mentioned, JLARC released a study on evaluating the state's broadband programs on 4 lines, assessing the existing programs, assessing the ability to achieve broadband goals, and assessing staffing needs and evaluating broadband affordability. In terms of assessing existing programs, body projects have limited mechanisms for oversight and adjustment. Make-ready permitting, incorrect project costing have been identified as barriers to project success. The Commonwealth will not achieve its goal of near universal coverage by 2028. BEAD will hopefully cover the remaining 100,000 locations, but not until 2030 or later. And BEAD construction is not expected to begin until mid-2026. So there is a long tail that still remains. Assessing the staffing needs, they note that DHCD has been a national leader in broadband policy. The office has a staff of 12 and is well positioned to manage BEAD and existing programs, as well as the digital inclusion programs. And lastly, on affordability, broadband costs on average $50 across the Commonwealth, $50 per month, and is unaffordable for households making less than 20,000. 10% of 10% of that should say Virginia households fall under that category, and JLARC recommends the Commonwealth subsidize broadband costs. They have a number of different proposals. The email that I sent earlier this afternoon included the JLARC study. The affordability portion is all the way at the end. I will quibble with their suggestion that only households that pay that earn less than $20,000 a year struggle to afford broadband. I think that a much closer estimate of the line would be 200% of the poverty line, which is where ACP was before. I will also note this is a live problem. Comcast recently in its quarterly earnings report noted that if it weren't for all of the ACP subscribers that have dropped in the last quarter, they would have been 9,000 net subscribers added. ACP recipients are needing to drop off. And so we are glad that in Albemarle County, the board has been generous enough to allow us to keep over 700 households connected. But that was the JLARC study. Are there any questions on that? And I will make one last note because it's something that I think is really important. At this point, every single one of the regional digital equity plans that were submitted to the state in the last year, the state's digital equity plan and the state's broadband affordability study from a year and a half ago have all recommended that the state should do a statewide broadband subsidy. JLARC even went so far as to note, as I have noted to you all before, that the BEAD non-deployment funding is ripe for this use. So it would be great to see some action either in General Assembly or at DHCD on that. We have been awarded $150,000 to develop a regional digital equity plan. You can imagine that it will note affordability as a major factor. EPR, a local planning firm, will conduct focus groups and other engagement for us in our partner localities, as well as with targeted covered populations. And the plan is expected to be completed this spring. And that is all that I have.
Well, there was one item under new business regarding the appointment of a broadband authority chief administrative officer, and Mike was speaking on that earlier. Did you have something else you wanted to say, Mr. Phelps?
Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me the floor just to reiterate.
One last time.
He's coming back as a member of the public.
That's right. Bill is exactly right. I want to make sure that everyone understands the gratitude I have for the Board of Supervisors in providing what is now called the Albemarle County Bridge. I was a big proponent of the broadband benefit that the federal government put into play to offset some of the high costs for lower income and, you know, military veterans and their families. It was just a great program that didn't last long enough. And then Jason and I put together this idea that we should continue that benefit when they dropped it from $50 to $30. We decided we're going to go to the board and ask for an additional 20 that we would lay on top of the new ACP. The board was grateful for that decision. We're grateful for that decision. And one of our partners has really been very critical in our success in making sure that our lower income population in Albemarle County can afford high-speed internet at their homes. And we feel like that's a very important thing that we need to continue. And hopefully we'll get to that. So I just wanted to bring up that important part of the process, of whether it's at the state level or we continue that benefit at the county level. It's very important that we keep people connected. As far as the administrative officer, it's a great role. Jason has been doing a lot of it. My role there has become less and less because of this gentleman's help. So I think it's basically a handoff with little or no concern, especially if Richie stays on board as our attorney. But the one thing I regret about this decision is I should have gone to Richie and Bucky before I put in the resignation and this determination. But I felt it was pretty important to get Jason underway while I was still around, and felt this was the best way to do it. So.
We probably would have just talked you out of resigning.
Right.
We refer to it as Tony Bennett, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, the one big thing we'll have to do, and it's not a huge issue, is we'll have to resubmit the paperwork to the FCC, which we have to do every time we have a change. So, you know, when Mike came on, we had to submit a change to the FCC. So when you go and look at the Albemarle Broadband Authority, the names of the people are right, and hopefully it shows up. But we'll go back and make sure that all of these changes are made, so that we represent the current membership. And if the board approves, we'll put Jason in as the administrative officer, and then he'll have to make all the calls to the State Corporation Commission. So there you go. Any questions I can answer, or okay?
So that means now when you call and have a concern about your internet.
Right.
I think that's what it is.
We'll have an intern take care of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is there a motion to appoint Mr. Inafuentes, our Chief Administrative Officer?
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And may God have mercy on your soul.
They didn't really ask me whether I wanted this job.
No, that comes later. Are there any other matters?
I think Director Jakewith was here for the vote on the resolution.
Yes, sir.
Against the resolution. I don't think Director Pruitt was here. Can we ask?
Can we cure that at this time?
Can we cure that? Just.
So would you like me to read it again? This is the,
I don't know that we need to, I have read it.
okay. Would you like to record a vote?
I would like to record a vote in the affirmative.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful.
And I did not,
That's just how we can do that? Okay.
Did you not vote?
I can't remember if I voted at the moment.
You did.
I did, okay, I thought I.
You look very voteful.
Okay, great.
I know you did.
You stood up. and-
I only walked in 60 seconds before you.
Got the timings in and everything.
Any other matters? For the broadband authority. Well, then once again, thank you, Mike Culp. I declare this meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Cheers. Travel for home or?
So you didn't have to actually return the vehicle, so you can just turn it over to Jason, give the keys to Jason.
Okay. Fine to do. Have you